Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Why Ukraine live stream. And excuse me while I share my screen here. Thank you all for coming. If you don't know, I'm an American in the Ukrainian Army, specifically the Unmanned Systems Forces. I live in Ukraine, and I'm in an undisclosed location very close to the front line. Hope everyone can hear me okay. Robert, thank you very much for your contribution. I believe it was yesterday. It's the very first for the new sort of revised fundraiser, and I want to just introduce that first, and then we're going to get into talking about some things. The first thing I'd like to say is I am in the Ukrainian Army. What I'm going to talk about with you today might be very controversial. It's my personal opinion. And I don't even know if I'm right. I'm not going to reveal any sort of operational security here. But I'm just trying to figure things out. Yeah. And who knows, maybe some of you have some ideas to help fix the problems. Oh, thank you. It wasn't me. So the sound is fine. That's great. Yeah, I've really been working hard on that. If you could see my sound situation, you can see my microphone here. Just don't think this is some kind of professional setup. It's the jankiest. There's an old desk lamp, and then my microphone is clipped onto it, and the desk lamp is taped in place so it won't move. But I really went back and listened through, or tried to listen through, some of my previous live streams, and they were, I mean, I don't know how you guys have ever tolerated me, to be perfectly honest. The sound sometimes is just awesome. Hello, Bas in Ukraine. Hey, very brave going to the army. I think that, I understand there are people who don't want to do that, and I know some of them. But I think that you will regret not doing so. And I understand there are problems in the Ukrainian army. Let's not kid ourselves here. Okay. There are some serious problems. But how are we going to improve them? Are you just going to stand outside the army and say, hey, you should fix that problem? No. You dive in with both hands and you fix the problem. Okay. And today we're going to talk about training. I don't have all the answers, but I've just kind of been having these experiences, and I'm slowly sort of figuring things out. If you don't believe I'm in Ukraine, witness me. This is the energy drink of choice here. So, Belle, thank you for coming, by the way, and Frag, it's great to see you. Frag, I want you to notice that next to your name, because you are a member of my YouTube channel, next to your name, there's a little badge. I think that's for you. Anyway, I just made these badges for everybody who's a member. Shere Khan says, I believe you're in Ukraine. I've seen you there. Yes. Yes. And thank you very much, Shere Khan, who brought me the laptop that I'm using right now, which is also a big reason why my sound is improved. Oh, Leathercat, your little badge looks great. I just recently discovered that YouTube had set up these custom badges. They didn't have it before. Like a year ago, it wasn't available. So everybody's gonna get custom badges now. It's gonna be cool. So before I get into talking about the military training problems in Ukraine and what I have found and discovered, I just want to mention. So this is my own fundraising for the work that my unit is doing, and this is my unit. It's called the Birds of Fury, and it's it's a company within, like a military company within the Unmanned Systems Forces here in Ukraine. And we build, and so we have a private company that handles the building of our. Okay, working. I should know that by now. That finances our unmanned systems, and we have a whole bunch of technology that we are working on. And the problem is there are some limitations. For example, the private company is actually owned by a charity foundation, and this is the charity foundation. And incidentally, if you'd like to go to that, it's heroesukraine.org, and you can donate to the big project that we're working on right now. I mean, if you want to donate towards just buying one of our drones that will then be built for the company to use, for the military unit to use, you can do that here. One of the big things we're working on right now is a veterans center, and this is a really important thing. Not just for humanitarian sake or whatever, but for actually improving the recruitment of the Ukrainian armed forces and reducing the number of people who go AWOL, because they can't take it anymore. Knowing that there's support on the other side is just a really important thing. But there are limitations on by law here in Ukraine on what, for instance, the private company that builds our drones, what they can spend money on. And one thing that they can't spend money on, by the way, thank you, Johnny. I really appreciate that. Robert says, I sent an idea to Technology for Ukraine, as I have not heard from Brian. Robert, if you don't mind, send it to me. Technology for Ukraine, by the way, we are doing work with this group, Technology for Ukraine, and they're it's a little bit chaotic sometimes. It's just a bunch of volunteers who want to help Ukraine. And so Robert, send it to me, and I'll make sure it gets to the right people because I'm working very closely now, and our engineers in both on the military side and the civilian side are working pretty darn closely with Technology for Ukraine on a number of things. And so Leathercat says, I wonder if Ukraine will end up building and exporting drones for hobbyists. I mean, yeah, although I have a feeling that after this war, you're going to have to get registered to buy a drone. I mean, sadly, because they're no longer viewed as hobbyist things anymore, I think. So because there are limitations on one of the things that's limited what you can spend money on is innovation, ironically, under Ukrainian law. And it's crazy. There's sometimes Ukrainian laws, just a lot of them are, just holdovers from communism or just cutting off their nose to spite their face. But then again, speaking of Americans, don't get me. I'm gonna try not to talk about what's happening in America right now, okay? Because it's just taking up all the airspace, and maybe I'll save it for the end. The point is that we really need help getting some of these innovation projects off the ground. And hey, Steve, Furious Falcons. Maybe that'll be the next unit. Yes, Robert, send it to me on Discord. It'd be really great. Johnny says, can you use quadrohexacopters and parts from civilian RC communities? And can you use model airplanes? There are a lot of people, for instance, in Technology for Ukraine, there are people who previously were in the model airplane and civilian drone communities who are now working with us, and their experience is invaluable. Technology is advancing so fast that a lot of the model airplane stuff is kind of outdated. But the basic, I mean, we're using the motors. Where the basic stuff is all there. I mean, effectively, what we have here, this kind of is a model airplane. If you look at it, that's exactly what it is. Our that you can see right in this video here. Well, why don't I just go to my own website, because you can take a look here, and so this is what we need. This is what we're raising money for. It's carbon fiber. So our planes that you can see here, these are primarily made from carbon fiber. That's what the frame is made of. And it's extraordinarily expensive. And every time you land one of these, there's a risk of banging something up. Something needs to be fixed. They get shot at when they're flying over Russian territory. They have a range of, 50 or more kilometers. And so they fly through some very, very dangerous areas, and they come back and they need to get fixed. We are constantly having to build more because they do get lost for various reasons. Lost as in they get shot down. The GPS gets screwed with, and that is something that we are working on fixing. That we are working on innovating around, and that's Salt of the Red Earth. Thank you. It is really cool. It's cool to fly them, and these are not the only drones that we fly. We also fly, for example, the Leica drones. See if I can find some images of those. Yeah, these guys and Vector. These are all well known. None of them have quite the capabilities that our drones do. Some of these are mainly for reconnaissance. Others have bombing capability, but not the kind of range. You have the Leica 100, which is actually similar to our model, but slightly different purposes. There's another one, Sich, I think it's called. And there's a lot of these, so we're not just flying the one, but this is the main, our primary. So we are in constant need of carbon fiber, and we buy it by the roll. And then the next thing, the other thing I want to mention that you can help us with is we are working on putting out fiber optic drones. So, and this, by the way, this is a prototype. This is not what the end result will look like. But what we need right now is the 3D printer filament. Okay. And it's cheap and everything, but we need a lot of rolls of this stuff. And we've got about 25 3D printers. And, we're just ready to go as soon as we can get all the supplies that we need. We'll be. So here's a video of the prototype flying, and this was given to us. The pattern for it was given to us.
Slower.
So,
I'm sorry because it's
yeah. We're probably going to end up modifying it.
No
we're
one
going to
move.
improve it.
Don't
We're going to make it better. But our goal right now is just to get these things out the door, and because there's a need for them on the front lines, especially in Kursk. So that's the deal. If you guys feel like if you've got an extra $5 or whatever, carbon fiber is extraordinarily expensive here. Everything is more expensive here in Ukraine, but I kind of wanted to make it so that you could, if you want to buy a foot of carbon fiber, like that's enough to fix a shotgun hole. Johnny asks, carbon fiber tube and plates should be golden. Carbon fiber, you mean for okay, so we buy it by the roll because we're actually building these, these large frames here. And so that's all kind of custom made, custom production. Carbon fiber tubes and different plates to cut out of, those are what most of your quadcopter and even hexacopter drones are using right now. But I can tell you that our I'm not going to tell you what kind of materials our new fiber optic drones are going to be made of, but it's not going to be primarily carbon fiber, because of the carbon fiber is a little bit too flexible, to be honest. So if you can take a look at this prototype, there is some carbon fiber, but we have to reinforce it, and we're reducing the amount of carbon fiber more and more and more. Specifically, what we need the plastic filament for is to make the special canisters that the fiber optic goes into. Okay, and you've probably seen lots of different fiber drones out there. We can even look. Ukraine. We can even look. There's lots of different designs, and that's because there's different types of canisters. The canisters that we are getting are more like this is actually a this is actually for 3D printer filament, but the fiber rolls that we get are kind of like this, basically, not too far off from this, as opposed to being long and thin. They're more like this, and there are advantages and disadvantages to this that we are working with to the different shapes. But we have to 3D print. If you can imagine, you can't just have a spool of fiber optic, flapping in the wind. It has to trail out behind the drone at the right angle, at the correct rate. You don't want it all to just fly off the spool all at once, and so that's what we need to make with the 3D printed canisters here that you see hanging off the bottom of this thing, and we need a bunch of them. And our calculations say that I think we're going to be able to make 3 canisters along with the thing that holds the canister onto the frame, along with the munition onto the frame. I think we can make 3 of those per roll of carbon of 3D printed fiber. that's the current rate that we're looking at. So yeah, basically approximately a little more than 100 meters is enough for one drone, and 50 full spools should get us 150 drones, hopefully. Boss in Ukraine, we make filament here too. Ukraine is pretty cheap filament. It's made with corn products. That's cool. Johnny asks, sorry about the question storm, but can you have a spool at the transfer end too for increased range? Yeah, so the problem with that is that it'll get caught on stuff, basically. There's already enough of a problem with that. Just having, I mean, it would be nice to have that, right? But you're flying pretty low over trees, if you can imagine. I mean, this video does a somewhat decent job of showing the kind of, you're flying low over these trees, and that fiber can just get caught on all sorts of things. And if you're spooling off the ground, then that's going to cause problems. It does cause problems anyway. And if you have a strong wind, the fiber can get blown all over the place, and you end up, you have 10 kilometers of fiber, and you can only go 5 kilometers because the wind's blown it all over the place and wasted it. I mean, there's all sorts of problems like that. So these are things we deal with. Okay, so yeah, I mean, that's where we're at, and if you guys can help with that, we don't have any other funding source for these things right now. Basically, it's not on the innovation side, So I really appreciate it. So let's talk about training. Yeah. I mean, obviously, training is a problem in Ukraine, has been a problem. Part of the problem is that, the army was not considered a viable career. Joining, I mean, in some ways, this is a good thing, right? I mean, prior to 2014 and arguably prior to 2022, the army was a place that you went if you didn't have anything else to do with your life and you had no goals or direction, and or you just wanted to be kind of a subcriminal and sell off former Soviet weapons out the back door of your army base. And I'm saying this having spoken to many Ukrainians who've told me this exact thing. I mean, Shirkan, has the social status of soldiers changed in your opinion? It's a very interesting question. If I spoke better Ukrainian, I think I would have a more accurate answer. I get a lot of thank you for your service or something along those lines. Definitely. When I'm walking around town, where the place where I am now, in my home village. But is that the percentage of everybody? I mean, it's not like everybody walking past me. First of all, I guess I should make mention that because of the nature of the work that I do, I am required not to wear a uniform. Literally required not to wear a uniform in most cases. I can wear a uniform as long as I'm not working. And yeah, so I mean, clearly I'm not mostly on the front line. And the reason that I have to not wear a uniform most of the time is because of Zhdunis. In other words, Ukrainians who are pro-Russia, and I meant to put this on my list of things to talk about, but we can talk about the explosions at recruitment centers that obviously totally Russian sponsored. Okay, totally Russian sponsored. So, Ukraine recruitment scandal attack, center attack. So 2 days ago, 1 day ago, Russia recruiting people to blow up Ukrainian army recruitment centers. Okay. Now, yes, it is Russia doing that. Yeah. But why are they able to do that? Is the question. That's interesting. Anna from Ukraine once mentioned that Ukrainians have adopted the habit of giving every UA soldier they see a smile. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah. So for me, when I'm walking around, most people don't realize that I'm a soldier, and that's on purpose. That's on purpose. Yeah, Johnny, you're right. You're right. The question of poverty, is obviously you offer someone enough money to do something. Everyone has their price, yada yada. But yeah, Leathercat says, unfortunately, not many countries have the same view of military service people that the U.S. has. And I can tell you that I haven't all. I mean, even though I've had 3 brothers in the U.S. military, I have not always had the best opinion of people in military service, and now I am one. So that's karma, right? Uh, but I can tell you that from firsthand experience of actually even my students and people I know who have a great deal of resentment towards the Tisaka, as it were. And under no circumstances do they. I mean, think about it this way: Ukraine is a peaceful country, and people just want to live here in peace. I mean, one of my commanders told me yesterday, like, for all the stuff that they're doing and the amazing things that they're doing, and they're proud of it and all of that. He said, if they told me I could go home right now, I would. If they told me, yep, you're done, he said, I would go home right now. Okay. So there's a common phrase here, and I think I wouldn't call it pejorative, but certainly diminutive phrase. And it is the saying, I believe, is the army is a cross section of society. Now, that is not something that I have ever heard in America. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the common opinion, and usually that is stated by Ukrainians. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's not true. It's just I'm talking about like common perceptions. Um, but usually that is stated in response to some sort of problem with the army. Oh, so and so got drunk and arrested, or um, yeah, Shere Khan. I thought it was we had all kinds of different people. Yeah, I mean, I think it is true, but talking about it as a public perception, it's usually used here in Ukraine as kind of like not an excuse, but like, oh well, you're gonna have corrupt people because the army's a cross section of society. You're gonna have a lot of stupid people because the army's a cross section of society. And Johnny says, well, that is usually wrong. It's a reflection of the mostly male part of military aged men. Yeah, possibly. So, um, this is just this sort of general opinion. It's very hard to shake that opinion when it existed for hundreds of years, maybe. Going back to the freaking Russian Empire. You'd have to go back to like Cossack times, and that's really that's why you see. Sorry, there's too much blood in my caffeine stream, and I'm a little bit dehydrated today. That's here in Ukraine. You very often see there's a lot of let's not say propaganda, but pro-Ukraine army posters and things like that. And it's like, a regular guy takes, pulls open his shirt like Superman, and under his shirt he's actually a Cossack. And if you guys don't know what Cossacks are, they were like the original freedom fighters of Ukraine. But that, it was like 200, 300, 250, 300 years ago. That's how far back Ukrainians have to go historically before they can respect the army. Maybe. What pisses me off is the nag about manpower. Nothing wrong with girl power. Guys, yeah, there's a lot of women in my unit. Until just recently, my 2 immediate commanders were women, and Don't tell my wife, but I've got an entire unit of female. A whole freaking drone team is coming to my place tomorrow because their washing machine broke. So that'll be interesting. Sorry, Oksana. There's a lot of women in the army. In Ukraine. Okay, so there is this thing, and what my brothers who joined the army, they joined the army in America with basically no education. Okay, smart, very smart, but basically no education. Uh, Homeschooled for whatever stupid reason. I mean, I'm actually in favor of homeschooling if you actively homeschool. But if all you do is leave your kids at home and you go to the mall, like that's not homeschooling. Okay. But in any case, so they got their education in the army. The army in America is a place where you got your GI Bill. You can, yeah, maybe you come there with nothing, but you come out with something. And that is not a that's why when I was talking about this uh veteran support center, why it's so important here in Ukraine. There's no tradition of that in Ukraine. There's no GI Bill in Ukraine. And so a lot of Ukrainians don't have a feeling of patriotism. They say our government, maybe they're listening to Russian propaganda, or maybe they're not, but they say, my government is corrupt, blah blah blah, everything sucks, everything's bad, we're poor. Why should I fight for this place that I hate and I just want to leave? Okay. And so they have a lot of resentment. That has to be solved. And one way to solve it is through training, to get so that the army can be looked at as not a slave labor, meat grinder, what have you, as a place where you can go and become something that you were not before. And that's a new concept here. And I'm just, their personnel changes. This is from December of last year. Personnel changes have been made specifically to reboot the system of training our warriors. And so this is a statement from Zelensky. I mean, I ain't seeing it yet. Okay. There's a huge need. All right. Here we have an article from this past week. Ukraine to establish network of guerrilla resistance training centers. Wait a minute. We didn't have that before? I mean, I can see why we're doing it now, because there is the distinct chance that, the great orange one is going to, have a bad hamburger one day and decide, oh, Ukraine gets nothing. Okay. So, where was this 3 years ago? Right? The idea of military training is just a complete anathema to Ukrainians, and again, that's because they are peaceful people. So let me describe for you what I think the problem is in the Ukrainian military. You guys might be familiar with the concept of a starvation mentality versus an abundance mentality. So if you have a starvation mentality, you want to keep everything. You want to hold it in because you don't know, somebody might come and take it away at any moment, right? You got to, oh no, If you have an abundance mentality, which is extraordinarily rare here in Ukraine, okay, because Holodomor and everything else, If you have an abundance mentality, you say, here, go ahead, take my last dollar. Okay? Because I know I'll get more. I'm confident in myself that I'm going to be okay. Ukraine doesn't have that. Not yet. Not in the majority. And so the same is true for training. All right? So here's how it works. Here's the big secret. Here's the big thing I've been taking 35 minutes to get to, you guys. Okay? If you get some kind of training in the army here, you get a little checkbox on a piece of paper, okay, that goes into some database somewhere. And actually now there's this new database that they are implementing. Tell me I can find it. Yeah. Army Plus. Okay. So it's all going to be digitized now. And it has all the training that you've received. Yeah. If you have some sort of important specialized training and it gets that little box gets checked, bling, 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 it lights up the database all over the entire army of Ukraine. Here's a guy who has this specialization. He knows this stuff. Okay. Now, your unit gave you that training because they needed somebody who could do that thing. Yeah. But now some other unit, some bigger unit, some higher ranked colonel, general, high mucky muck says, oh no, we need that guy. We need him over here. Yoink. And you get taken away. So now the unit you were in before is left without that support. And all they've got now is a bunch of guys who are, barely qualified to carry shovels. Right? So what's the impetus? What's the impetus to give people training? If all it's going to do is encourage those people to leave, transfer to other units, encourage other units to come and snipe them. Shirkan says this is exactly how it works here as well in the American army. See, maybe if I had more experience in the American army, I wouldn't be surprised by this. But oh, by the way, hello Scruffy, thanks for coming. We're talking about army training and why Ukraine doesn't have enough of it. So it's not a matter of individual people. It's a whole system, right? It's a whole system that ultimately discourages education or self-education. Frag, I'm open to suggestions. Frag says more universal specialized training. Scruffy and Shirkan, I know you guys are in the militaries in your respective countries. How does Ukraine fix this problem? Just train its way out of it? Just keep on training and training? But the thing is, units don't. I mean, there are some units that's like Azov, 3rd Assault Brigade, right? That training. If you're not fighting, you're training. Okay. But most units, it's my understanding, in the Ukrainian army, they don't want to do training because as soon as they get their guys trained up, some other unit's going to come along and eat that unit, swallow it up, and disperse everyone. Or so you have something good, something that works, and somebody just comes along and fucks it all up. Or those people are going to transfer somewhere else. Yeah, Shirkan. So Shirkan says the units that have priority will always get their pick of the litter. More universal training is the answer. Yeah. Hey, Cypher. I will confirm what Shirkan said. The U.S. Army does that shit all the time, especially when you are specially trained in things like SRT and the MP Corps. So, I mean, okay, you just got to train your way out of it. But when you have people who are like, no, I don't want, I don't want to lose more people, so I don't want to have more. I don't want to give more training because the more training they have, the more likely it is they're going to get yoinked. You know, and I'm not saying that that is necessarily the case in my unit. In fact, my unit, there's been a huge amount of cross training between different systems, which I think is really good. But I've also been told, hey, don't let anybody know that you know this stuff. Don't, certain things, because they'll take you, or uh, hey, we really need you because the last guy who knew this stuff got yoinked and got pulled up into higher command, and now we have nobody to handle this, and we're freaking desperate. Can you please help? Okay, that's um, you know, so Shirkan, that just sounds like laziness to me. Yes, absolutely. Laziness. I agree. Um, there is a Department of Military Training established in September 1998. Oh wait, I guess this is the State Tax University. It's a structural unit of the State Tax University and is subordinate to the Personnel Training Command of the Land Forces Command. Why would it be part of the State Tax University? That makes no sense whatsoever. What? I, yeah, training saves lives, Shirkan. I absolutely agree. Our unit just had a big, in addition to the regular drone training, a big March protocol refresher training for every. Actually, what's crazy is a lot of people had never had it, didn't get it. So I don't know how many people, like 60, 70 people got that training. Um, so yeah, that's the issue. That's the fight. Individual, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know. Um, no, Johnny Nedregard, I think, is in Norway. Could be wrong about that. Norway or Sweden, Johnny? Um, yeah. So that's the deal, guys. That's the big secret, and I don't have a solution to it, but it's something I have discovered. It's like this constant back pushing against against 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? You know, so I'm beginning to understand these things. Now, again, I want to emphasize that this is my own personal opinion and not the opinion of um, Ukraine or the Ukrainian armed forces or anything of that nature. So there you have it. Yeah, I'd like to talk about some other things. Pretty interesting stuff going on. Explosive devices discovered in FPV goggles sent to the Russian front lines, reportedly supplied by volunteers. I think that Atesh is very effective. Um, behind behind the lines. There's a lot of Ukrainians who have been deported from the occupied territories, and now they're in Russia. And I think they're doing this stuff. 10 to 15 grams of plastic explosives placed under the casing near the cooling fan, close to the wearer's temple. That doesn't take much at the temple, you know. A freaking very small amount of explosives. I do wonder how they detected it with probably the reason for such a thorough check was the triggering of at least one pair of goggles. Very interesting. Johnny says, I get that infantry need to be strong. Anyone else, not so much. Yeah, I mean, I skipped basic training. I didn't want to skip basic training. I would have happily gone to it, but they didn't put me through it. And I actually asked them to please put me through basic training, and they did not. They were like, no. So I guess we have to talk about this, guys. I just, oh God, fucking, the orange one is just taking up so much freaking space in the media and everything else with all the craziness, you know. But this USA business, all right. You know, I have to say that I completely agree with Combat Veteran Reacts. One moment. Oh, shit. Hang on, guys. I have to report to my unit. Give me a second. Fuck, I thought I did that already. Good God. Thank God I looked at my phone. Jesus. Wait a minute. Hey, did he report? Sorry, Oh. No. Delete. There we go. Okay. I thought I had it. All right. I did report. Okay. Apologies, you guys. I do actually have duties. I know it's shocking. Let me just check and make sure everybody's okay. Okay. Yeah. So, hang on. There we go. All right. Sorry, guys. Yeah. Yeah. So Leathercat says, after basic training that you get into job-specific training and specialized training, Ukraine doesn't seem to have any system of that I can perceive. Okay, really. And yeah, Cheryl. So the investigation of Musk and Starlink and USAID. Yeah. I will tell you that here in Ukraine, we are keenly aware of how much of a knife's edge relying on Starlink is. And the next fundraiser that I will add to this page. Wait a minute. Do I have it up already? I do. This is the next fundraiser that I have. I forgot that I added this. So guys, I'm gonna have to change some things here, but yeah, we are going to replace Starlink and maybe not replace GPS, but supplement GPS. We have a way of doing it, and it's top secret, and I can't tell you how it's going to be done, but I can tell you it's going to be both more and less expensive. Let's put it that way. Starlink is really expensive for Ukraine. Yeah, so basically, if you would like to help us replace Starlink in Ukraine, specifically for drones in this case, and then we have another one. I'm gonna have another fundraiser for replacing Starlink, not just for drones, but for drone teams. I don't want to go into the details of that, but if I do go on the Shills later on today, I might talk about it. Leathercat says, check my 2 comments. Yeah, see, this is something Leathercat, the purpose of standardized military training is to erase individuality mentality and mold them into living machines, basically. And the thing is that is a big resentment That's why Ukrainians hate military training, because that's what they think they think that's all it is. Okay. And all of my friends here in my unit who did go through that um, basic training, they said it's just a bunch of Soviet bullshit. Literally what they said. Okay, direct quote. So, and that direct quote from a lot of people. Okay. So the thing about the U.S. aid, right, is it's just America just cutting off its nose to spite their face, and I think that the majority of the American people support Ukraine. Um, the majority of American people don't understand what USA does, in the sense that it's a CIA soft power operation, primarily, arguably, or State Department, if you want to call it that. And if we don't have it, the Russians and the Chinese basically fill in the gaps. So what we have done is just literally like cut off our hands on a national level. You know? Shere Khan says, after boot camp, your individual personality is still intact. I mean, that may be true, Shere Khan, but that is not the public perception. I think that, my perception of military basic training comes from like Full Metal Jacket, and I understand that it's not necessarily that way now. It's very different now, because the needs of the army and the needs of our society actually require people to have the individual personality intact, to be able to function as a soldier in the modern army, I would say, in my experience. But we have these outdated perceptions. I'm sorry, Frag, you said, have you heard of the terminal hacks? Been out for over a week. Which terminal hacks? I hear about a lot of hacks all the time. Hello, Wizard of Ooze. Welcome. Oh, sure, Cypher. Marines are a whole different subject, James, he says. Interesting. So Johnny says, Johnny Nedregard says, Norway has started to go away from hard training. It's now reserved for infantry and special forces who actually needs to be powerful. Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. So anyway, let's go back to this USA business. It's crazy. Okay, guys. I mean, it's just madness, and I really think that my biggest fear is this: that the orange one is going to do, while Americans, maybe even Democrats, they don't want to say too much, right? Because they don't want him to pull out the rug out from under Ukraine. Even I have felt, pressure to, hey, don't say too much again about Trump, because he might cut off funding to Ukraine. You don't want that. I've gotten that. I've heard that from people. And so I think there's a distinct possibility that he's got Kellogg doing his thing, and oh yeah, we're going to be pro Ukraine, and then at the last minute he's going to say, wink, sorry Ukraine. I mean, already in the peace plan that has arguably sort of been floating around out there, it's basically like Ukraine gets nothing and Russia gets everything. That's not a peace plan. But that's what I think in some ways. I think that this is it's a takedown. It's a takedown of America from the inside, you know? by the Russians and the Chinese. I honestly think that the orange one and the Musk, I can't think of a nickname for him. I think that they are both agents. Simple. And I think the orange one has been an agent for a while, and I think that Musk has been an agent since 22. Honestly, of foreign powers, I really do believe that. So there you are. So Ukraine, I think, in the future is going to have to go to other places, and the fact that you know other countries are not necessarily going to act out of just common interest or the kindness of their heart or what have you. Interesting. Scruffy. Oh, Scruffy says thinking soldiers perform better than brainless soldiers, which is why Swedish and Finnish conscripts outperform UK and US Marines in war exercises. Oh boy. Now we're opening up that can of worms. Oh no. Oh, you guys can hash it out down there in the comments. I'm not going to get into that. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, Bulgaria, 500 million, so $500 million in compensation for Ukrainian aid. Where is that coming from? From Denmark, from the U.S., European Commission. The money's floating around. So I mean, there's still hope. We will have to. I just think we have to prepare for the rug pull. You know what I mean? Really. But this is great news. This is amazing. I don't know if anybody is caught up with this, but I criticized this, oh my God, all the way like last summer. Okay. So this is a big Russian natural gas project that was going on way up in the freaking Arctic. Okay. And it's a partnership between Russia and China. And, it could potentially change the whole, the whole thing, all of the sanctions, could allow them to get around the sanctions, all of that stuff. And I don't know where this came from, if it was ordered before, but I was very critical of Biden for not stopping this construction. Okay, the construction of this natural gas mining. Okay, through sanctions, because there was already a law passed that actually sanctioned this project. Okay, and was supposed to put a stop to it. And I guess at the very last minute, I'm really not sure how it happened, to be honest. At the very last minute, like these last big huge pieces were almost there, and then they had to turn back after a 10-month journey. The Chinese heavy lift vessel failed to deliver critical. So it's almost like they waited until they were almost there and then said, nope, you can't do it. And I don't totally know how. So the situation grew more complicated when the U.S. Treasury sanctioned the Wilson's Zhujiang Yard in January 2025, citing its material assistance to the Arctic. So, okay, so what that means is Biden basically waited till the last possible freaking minute to fully sanction this project and to stop it from happening. Okay. It's great. It's fantastic. The Arctic LNG 2 project, valued at $21 billion, represents a crucial piece of Russia's strategy to expand its LNG export capabilities and maintain its global energy markets despite Western sanctions. So The module's lengthy return to China also highlights the growing reluctance of Chinese companies to risk secondary sanctions. Fantastic. Now, if this is the last gift from Biden, then great. I feel that that's probably what it is. But hey, if Trump did it too, fantastic. Whatever. So I think that's where I want to stop today, guys. I've got a lot of drone stuff I want to talk about, but I'm planning to do another video with technology for Ukraine, possibly tomorrow. And I think I'm gonna kind of save a lot of this drone stuff to talk about with them. With Brian from Technology for Ukraine. Because it all kind of goes together, and I think it'll be pretty interesting. But someone last stream that I did mentioned the fact that turns out that Russian billionaire and politician Suleiman Kerimov held a 1% stake in SpaceX through a trust, even after the U.S. sanctioned him in 2018. So this has come out. And again, this is just talking what I was talking about earlier. Now you could say, oh, it's only 1% and this and that, but these things are all starting to come out. And unfortunately, why didn't this come out before the freaking election? Why wasn't this reported in the news before? We heard rumors about it, plenty of it. Would it have made a change to the U.S. election? I don't know. But you guys are going to have... I'm just glad I'm in Ukraine. That's all I can say. I'm glad I'm here. And I'm glad I get to help the Ukrainian army. And if you guys... I think I'm going on the Shills. I'm waiting for just confirmation. If so, I have a big announcement. I have a massive, huge announcement, and I'm not ready to make it yet. I might do it on the Shills tonight. We'll see. Tell Dick you need filament. Yeah, no, we do. Actually, we do. So yeah, guys, if you would like to help with any of these actual 3 projects here. So the one, which is 3D printer filament, we need to buy it. Carbon fiber for building new drones and the drone prototypes we're working on, the big fixed wing drones. And replacing Starlink and GPS. These are our big projects, guys. And I'm sorry I can't go into more detail about everything, but I have to have some OPSEC, right? So, Andreas, thank you for coming. And Robert, make sure you send me that on Discord. And Cheryl, this is a good question. Why were 5 oligarchs removed from the sanctions list by Pam Bondi? I think we're going to see more, unfortunately, Cheryl. But I will look up that information because that's new to me. Thank you, guys. I hope I get to see you later on tonight. Have a great night. Slava Ukraine. And do побачення.